Hey guys, welcome to Bourbon and Smoke. Today we're going to be cooking a 14-pound brisket that I trimmed up and dry brined last night. Dry brining, for those of you that don't do that or don't know what that is, all it is salting the meat pretty heavily, especially for this big chunk of meat, and then just letting it sit in your fridge overnight on a rack so that way it gets airflow the whole way around the piece of meat. So like I said, today we have a 14-pound prime Angus brisket. Picked it up at Sam's Club and it looks fantastic. Alright, here we have our beautiful 14-pound brisket. As you can see, I've already done a lot of trimming on it. I trimmed up the flat here just to get a nice even edge and to make this a little bit thicker so we don't get a real flat end there that's going to cook way faster than everything else. I trimmed up a fair amount of fat right here. That fat cap was probably close to a ½ inch thick. Now we're down to maybe 1/4 of an inch. I also cleaned up on the side here. You can see we left a lot of this fat in here, but it's really not that thick anymore. That was probably pretty close to a ½ inch. On the fat cap, I just went and left all of this as is. I did trim a little bit over here just to cut this down just a little bit, but even over here we're still looking at quite a bit of fat. This is going to be an extremely long and slow cook. So what I want to do is leave this fat on here to help protect everything and also to hopefully render down once we bag it up or put it in the butcher paper. I want some of this to basically turn into juice and sit in that bag with the meat and give us all that extra delicious flavor that we're looking for. So beyond this, what we're going to do is turn it back over here and we're going to give it some seasoning. What I have for seasoning is a beef rub that I make at home. I just put it in this shaker that I have laying around. It is an old Lowry's bottle. I use a ton of Lowry's just day to day, so I definitely have had enough of them sitting around. So I'm just going to go over the top of it here, and I'm going to spread it nice and thick, but not thick to where you can't see the meat or allow any smoke to get through. So I'm just going to go over all the top here. I'm going to give that a good pat in. We don't want any loose stuff. We want to just kind of just gently press that into the meat just so it sticks, so we're not getting a whole lot falling off. We don't want to rub it around, because if you rub it, you start to get little balls like this that is not going to be good on your meat. So we're just going to do this, and then around the edges here, just going to keep kind of patting it. I think that's a pretty good cover there. Turn this up here. Now we're not going to get a whole lot of penetration of seasoning into the meat, but what this will make sure it gives you is a nice bark at the end. Everyone always talks about the seasoning and everything else. What I prefer on a brisket is a good, solid, not overly hard, but nice crispy bark. The seasoning can be just salt and pepper for all I really care. Obviously the additional flavors you get from these different seasonings will add in some delicious flavor, but if you get that good bark and you get the good long cook where it's just going to sit in there and stew in its own juices, that's when you're going to get your best brisket. Peel this back a little bit, get a little bit in there. So as I mentioned, what we are going to do is do a very long cook on this. We're going to start at about 8 hours. It is currently 10:30 at night. So what I'm going to do is put this on the smoker around 11 o'clock and just let it sit there at about 190, 195 until about 7 o'clock. I am cooking on a Green Mountain pellet smoker, so my temperature is pretty well set for me. I can fill the hopper with pellets and go to bed. So I'll just keep seasoning this. Again, you want to make sure you get every little inch of this. Being as it was dry brined last night, we are going to get a whole lot of that salt penetration into the meat. Like I said, that sat overnight, and that is going to give us some really deep flavor. And there we go. Pretty well seasoned there. Give it one more little shake, quick pat. Alright guys, we got the smoker warmed up, 195. It's been sitting here for a few minutes, so it's got a chance to kind of even out the heat, get everything pretty well organized in there. Got the brisket out. What we're going to do is we're going to lay fat side down, and I know on my grill the right side is just a few degrees warmer than the left side. So what we're going to do is we're going to lay the flat on the cooler side, since it is a significantly thinner piece of meat, help protect it a little bit and give the brunt of that heat to the other end. So we're going to go ahead and throw it on here. Come here, beautiful girl. So again, we're fat side down, flat away from as much heat. With pellet grills, obviously you're going to have some different heat spots depending on how your heat shielding is set up. I know with mine, I just can't seem to get it completely even. So again, bigger side that way, flat over here, and then a little bit that way. And we're going to shut this up, and we're going to come back in about 8 hours, check on it, check temperature. We're hoping to be around 150 on the point, and then we'll get it wrapped up in some butcher paper and get everything going. Morning guys, it's just about 7 a.m. and this thing's been sitting on here for almost 8 hours, so we're going to check the temperature, see what we're at, and hopefully we can wrap this thing up and put her in for another 6-8 hours. Alright, now that we're done doing the meat work, I say let's make a little dessert. So, what I have here is a bottle of Redemption Rye. I found this at the local liquor store here for $20 on sale. So what we're going to do is we're going to try it neat, and we're going to try it with an ice ball here. It smells like bourbon. So right off the bat, it is definitely not a super strong smelling rye. A lot of times with rye, you get this real strong nose flavor right away, and it's really not bad. Actually, it smells a little herby, maybe a little vanilla, but yeah, not bad. Let's give it a shot. Wow, that's one of the smoother ryes I think I've probably ever had. It's not harsh initially. It's very smooth. It really feels good all over your tongue. I mean, it just kind of sits there and dances. I'm really, honestly, pretty terrible at picking out individual notes, and it finishes here and it goes there. I just really like bourbon in general, so I'm not going to go through and pretend that I'm this fancy guy. So now let's give this a little chance to chill out here and get a little bit of that ice melted. Just kind of mellow it down a little bit, which I honestly don't think it needs. It really is fantastic neat. It does change the flavor a little bit. I wouldn't say it mellows it out because, like I said, it doesn't really need mellowing out at all. This would actually probably be a fantastic bourbon, to start off on if you're looking to, start drinking a little bourbon straight. This is fantastic for $20. Man, you can't go wrong with that. This is a fantastic dessert. I'll probably make one a little bit for maybe an appetizer tomorrow. We do have to take the brisket tomorrow to 2 different places, so we're going to be having the brisket leaving some here for the family and taking some over to a friend of mine's. So unfortunately, there will be not quite the full set that we like, or that we'd like to have, but it will be a fantastic brisket, I'm hoping. We do have one trick, and this is something that I've picked up from all of my massive years of watching YouTube videos mostly, and reading, well, mostly YouTube videos, I guess, but not reading them, just watching them. That is really how I have done all of my cooking. Thank you, 2020. Thank you, quarantine, for giving me absolutely nothing to do other than learn how to cook. Learn how to... I knew how to smoke. I've had a smoker for 6 or 7 years now, so I've been doing it a little bit here and there, but this year really, or last year, it's 2021. We don't speak of 2020, I know, but it really did push me to try some different things, and I sadly I'm grateful for it. So I hope you guys enjoy these videos. I will be back in a few hours for me, and about 5 seconds for you to put that brisket in some paper, and we'll see you then. And I'm just using a quick instant read thermometer. It's a ThermPro, got it on Amazon, very cheap. This is extremely useful. So we're reading about 162 degrees, which is a little bit more than I actually expected we were going to be at, which is just fine. So now we're going to take this thing off, wrap it in butcher paper. So leave it down here. We're going to give this just a spray down with some beef tallow. What this is going to do is help add back some of the moisture that we've lost from the smoking so far, and just also incorporate a whole lot of extra flavor. So we don't need a ton of it. If you don't know what beef tallow is, it's just basically just rendered fat. So I took the trimmings from this brisket and trimmed them down yesterday, and then rendered them down yesterday, just so we could have something nice to lay it on and give it some of that extra flavor. Right on here. We are good. So when I checked the temperature on this, the flat was actually a little bit behind the rest of it. So what we're going to do is we're going to turn it around and give the flat the end of towards the heat, like we had talked about yesterday, and just to kind of help it along. And now with it being wrapped, we're going to have a little extra protection for it, so it's not going to heat up quite as fast. We want to pull off around 202, 203, and then let it rest for really as long as you want. The longer you let it rest, the more those juices are going to redistribute, settle out throughout the entire piece of meat, and it's going to give you a much better flavor, much more tender as well. Alright guys, it's actually only been about 3.5 hours and we just hit temp. So we're at 202 on the point and on the flat. So I'm going to pull this out, I'm going to throw it in this cooler. I'm going to throw it in there for at least 4 hours before we look at cutting it. Cooler is going to keep it nice and warm while allowing all the moisture to kind of redistribute. So that'll give us some more moist ends where normally that moisture is sort of evaporated and kind of conjoined in the middle. So we're going to pull it out, we're going to throw it in the cooler, and we'll pull it back out, and like I said, around 4.5 hours or so. Alright, so the brisket's been resting for about 5 hours now. So it's definitely cooled down. but all the juices should have reabsorbed in there as much as possible. So we're going to take it out. This is going to be a bit of a mess, but we're going to do it inside anyway. All right, you can see that butcher paper just soaked up everything. So now, it is still pretty warm in here actually. So what we're going to do, slowly unwrap this. Try not to get the juices everywhere, which is a task in itself. Oh yeah, this is still quite hot. Oh, that looks good. Oh, that looks real good. Some nice crispy bark on the outsides here. Alright, so I grabbed my gloves because this thing is still quite hot. So I'm going to pull it out. You can see, still got quite a good jiggle on it. That means the meat is nice and tender, but the bark on the outside here is about perfect. Pull this out of the way. I'm going to try to save as much of these juices as we can, because those are fantastic on the trimmings. I'm just going to set this off to the side here for right now. Ooh, that is nice looking. You can see how much it shrunk. That is obviously to be expected. Fat is going to render, it's going to shrink in, but that just means all that juice and everything is going to just kind of soak in. So that's our fat cap. So if we turn around and actually look at the, ooh, wow, the fat is just kind of falling off of it here. If we turn around and actually look at the meat side, that bark is about perfect. Nice and moist, but still got a good little crisp to it. I know it's kind of an oxymoron, but this is fantastic. All right, so first thing I want to do is kind of make a cut right in about here. Just trying to see, oh wow, just falls apart. So this is what you want your brisket to look like. Give that push, see all that juice just flowing out of there. This is perfect. You got the wonderful smoke ring around there. So I'm going to cut a little piece off of the end here, off of the flat. And then we'll give that a try. Man, the fat is just falling off there. Look at that. That just fell off the bottom and it's just disintegrating in my hand. This is perfectly rendered. All right. So with the flat, you always want to cut perpendicular. This is going to go against the grain, so it's going to do kind of some of the chewing for you. I like to round it off, so the first cut's going to be a little bit bigger just because obviously the brisket is a little oddly shaped. Let's move this over here. But you can even see in the end here, we still got a fair amount of juice, and that's at the very end. So I'm going to chop off just a very tip piece here. So this is the very end. This is the piece that was all by its lonesome. And you can see when I squeeze it, you're still getting some juices that come out. Pause for 1 second. All right, now that I'm done enjoying that, it was a way bigger bite than I thought it was. Absolutely fantastic. Melts in your mouth. It's extremely juicy. And this should be the driest cut that we're going to have through this entire piece. So that makes me immediately super happy that we're still juicy even where it's dry. So now, as we get down here, obviously you can see where we start to get this fat ring or fat strand. That's going to go all the way through here. This is where the two pieces of muscle actually meet. So this is still flat, as we see down here. And this piece up here is actually a separate muscle. So that's what's creating that fat lining there. So with this, what we're going to do is we're actually going to cut it perpendicular, I guess, to what we were cutting the flat. Give this a nice cut here. Oh. You can see the juice is just running out of it. You can see right there I'm getting just at the very end of the flat or excuse me, just at the very end where those two muscles are starting to come together. So leave that. Cut one more here. Just watch as I cut through here. Just watch the juices just flow out. Look at that. Just running down it. I am going to, we give it the little tenderness test, as they call it. That's about as tender as you can get. Where you can clap the two ends together. That is perfect tenderness. It's not going to fall apart. The other test you can give it is the pull test. So just lift it up, start to pull it apart. You can see it just falls apart when you're trying to pull it. Ooh, this is fantastic. Look at that. Oh, so juicy. Absolutely melts in your mouth like butter. I wish it wasn't 3 o'clock in the afternoon. I would add a little dessert to this and have some whiskey, but I don't think that's probably the best idea right now. But anyway, I hope you guys liked the video. I hope you go make your own brisket. Again, seasoning, do whatever you want. Spicy, you can add barbecue sauce to it before you throw it in the bag. Whatever you want to do. My only suggestion, my biggest suggestion is don't do the tin foil because it's going to make your bark it's going to melt away all that bark you've worked to build up. Buy the butcher paper. It's cheap. Definitely worth it 100%. So, if you like the video, please like and subscribe to my channel. Leave a comment below if you want to see me do anything else. I think next we're going to maybe do some bacon and probably some dry-aged prime rib. So, like I said, thank you guys for joining in today, and I'm going to go cut up some meat.